world. In this video, we're going to look at doing a little starburst. Watch this icon up here. Watch the little starburst. Okay, it's this little effect. We see that little starbursty ray thing that appears, okay, at the same time as the icon. Okay, we're going to make that in this video. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is draw a shape. Now, you can't just go and draw a rectangle and use this. Okay, we need a rectangle, but we need the center of the world to be in the middle of the rectangle, and it's a lot easier to do that if we just double click up here. So I'm going to use the rounded rectangle tool, just looks kind of cool with it being a little bit blobby. Okay, and just double click the icon. It throws in a rectangle right in the center of our space. It's far too big. We can resize it, it's no problem. There's a few different ways of resizing things, okay? If I grab the edge, I'm actually scaling it. I want to actually change its physical size, and we do it by down here on my shape layer under rectangle 1, okay? And here there is rectangle path. Okay, that's its core, its size, position, and rounded edges. So what I'd like to do is I'd like it to be a size of about, I want it to start at a width of about 30 and a height of 0. And what you'll notice is, okay, it gets down to 0 if you don't unlink this. Okay, so I want the width to be 30, okay, and the height to be 0. So make sure that chain link is broken, otherwise they're connected. Now what you'll see is I'm going to zoom in a bit. You can see it's 30 pixels wide and 0 high. So that's how it's going to start. What I'm going to do is bring my playhead back to the beginning here. So what I want to do is animate this. So I'm going to turn on my keyframe. So at frame 1, the size is going to be 30 by 0. And then after about a second, okay, it's going to be 0. So it's going to be very thin, but very tall. How tall? I'm going to make it about 60. It really depends on what you want to do. And watch, see the difference between the two? Kind of goes bloop. Cool. I'm going to go back to fit. I find this is good because I can see it in proportion to everything else, especially because now I want to move it. So we're going to set a keyframe for position. Make sure your playhead is here at 0. Okay, move along to this one. Okay, remember hold shift on your keyboard and it will lock into the exact same position as this keyframe so they line up. And where do I want it to go? X and Y. Y is the second one. And I want to drag it kind of to the negatives, which makes it go up. Weird, huh? Cool. So it's going to start down there and then move up there afterwards. So we've got 2 keyframes. I'm going to preview it. Okay, if you're like me, while you're previewing, it's a little hard when there's all this other music playing and everything animating behind it. So what we're going to do is, on our shape layer here, let's just twirl it down so we can't see it. Okay, and what I'd like to do is just turn off the eyeball on these other layers and the sounds off these layers. We'll turn them back on in a second just so that we can see this guy in isolation. Cool. So we've got this little guy, he's doing his little thing. The animation's not very nice. So remember, we're going to use the U key, and that'll show us the keyframes for this. I'm going to select all these guys, and I'm going to right click one of them, go to keyframe velocity, and change to my famous 75%. Click OK. One thing you'll notice is that I tried to do them all in one go, but I only did one set. Okay, I hadn't done these guys because size changes X and Y. So there was 2 options in here, but position only has, we're only adjusting the Y. Okay, so it can't do both of them at the same time. So you just have to do these separately. So sometimes you can change them all in one big go by selecting them all. Sometimes though, you have to do them separately. Hopefully a little nicer now. Bloop. Okay, you add your own bloop noise. So the next thing I need to do is kind of repeat it round in a circle. So I'm going to kind of put my playhead halfway between these two just so I can see it. Okay, and what we need to do is add what's called a repeater. You do it, I'm going to have to twirl it up, twirl it back up to see everything in here, and make sure you've got layer 1 selected, okay, shape layer 1, click this word add, and just add this one called a repeater. A repeater is an effect, okay, and what we can do here, just have a little look, there's 3 of them. There you go. Have it back in the middle here. What we want to do is open up repeater and we want to change a few things. One is how many copies. So I'm going to have 13. It doesn't really matter how many you have. You can experiment with what looks good. Okay, and you can see now it's got 13 of them. By default, what it does is that it repeats its position 100 pixels to the right. So what we want to do is go to transform repeater, and where it says position, okay, we want to say actually we don't want to repeat it 100. Do that 0. So there's 13 of them all stacked on top of each other now. What I want to do though is I want to play around with the rotation. Now divide 360 degrees by 13 little copies. I have no idea. So what you do is you go 360 divided by how many copies you have. Okay, you can do math in these little, any of these little fields. Okay, if you're terrible with math like me, let the machine do it. 27.7. Okay, and poof, awesome, huh? Now, if yours isn't looking good like mine and it's kind of maybe spiraling off, this happens in my class quite a bit, is that you'll not have changed position and it does this. It's kind of cool. It's kind of weird. So just make sure position is set to 0. Okay, and there we go. That's our little starburst. Now we're going to turn on our layers and move it so it's in the right spot. So what we'll do is, let's close that one, turn the eyeballs all on, turn the sound on for the blop, the music and the background. And what we'll do is we'll reposition this shape layer. Problem is it's quite hard to do. Okay, where is he there? It's quite hard to get your fingers on him. So it's a lot easier to actually twirl this down. And I'm going to twirl all that up and use this one here. It says transform. I'm going to play around with the position. And I often use position to drag things around rather than using the cursor like we do in lots of other Adobe programs, just because it's so hard to do when they're so small or the opacity's down at 0. So what I want to do is play my playhead until our little pop-up guy appears. There he is there. This little starburst needs to start along at about the same sort of time. That's kind of close. What else we want to do is play around with the position. So you go over there and go down a bit. There we go there. Cool. Now we're going to play it, and how good is that? That's kind of cool, huh? Okay, so if yours is doing something weird and you're just like, oh, I still can't do it. Okay, you're going to have to go back through this tutorial and do it exactly step by step. What you'll find is, say here in the shape layers, there's lots of, there's transform position here. There's also transform position in the repeater. There's also in the rectangle here, there's position. So you just got to make sure you follow me exactly to make this one work. The cool thing about it though is once you've done it once, and you want to use it for another job, just go and copy and paste this shape layer, okay, to any new comp or any new project you're working on, or even better, just steal my one. Okay, my one definitely works. I'll save it now and it'll be part of what's called the completed files. You'll see a link to it on the screen somewhere. All right, that's our little circle pop.